Good morning, ladies. Today, I thought we would talk about one of my favorite things when I get on a training with new clients. A lot of times they want to do, tips and tricks. They'll say, we've been using Zoho for a little while. We probably aren't using it to the best of its abilities. And then, they'll always ask for tips. And I love giving tips to make people's lives work a little bit easier. So today's tips are going to be about automating Zoho. We've got all of these business process in here. We've got our lead nurturing. We've got our sales process. Now we want to be able to automate that, because one of our goals that we like to do that, when people ask me, what do we do and how do we help? One of the things I like to say is, we automate your process so that you can make more money with less resources. And it's all about getting some of these tips and tricks inside the CRM that can help you do that. So you ladies ready for that today?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I know last week, Mita, you and I think we're talking about some of the assignment rules and leads getting into the database and everything.
Yeah.
And did you want to talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was the best place to start, because the whole point about CRM is how do we manage our leads? Now, whether you're a large company or a small company, you may have a situation where you know that certain leads have to go to a certain person, whether it's based on territory, it could be product speciality, and assignment rules are fantastic in that when a lead comes in, you can actually determine and define your criteria to say, okay, if a lead is in from Scotland, it will go to Danielle. If it's from Texas, it goes to Wendy. And the criteria can be up to 25 different criteria. So it's not a case of only one. So you can actually mix and match and make sure your process is automated, so it's completely seamless when it goes through. Only things to be aware of to be able to set these assignments. You obviously need to have permission to access the feature, and because this is part of automation, if you're creating a record manually, then the automation won't work. But a list of contacts or leads coming in from an Excel spreadsheet or from your website, Zoho will take care of that.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so that actually falls in with one of my favorite tips. I like to talk about the approval process. So approval process in the CRM, there's loads of different decisions to be made. Part of it is, the lead assignment rules. Or it comes to one of our clients last week. They wanted any opportunity that was created that's above 200,000, then the manager actually needs to approve that before it can be quoted, right? So that is an example of the approval process, using the approval process in the CRM. Some of the other things that we help our clients with in there is, marketing. Planning a campaign may need the approval of the marketing head before the marketing department can send it out. So that's one of the things that can be approved as well. After the approval, agents assigned a task, inform the manager, close the voucher. Those are all types of automation that can happen within the approval process as well. You can set it to send out email notifications, this got approved, so I want to inform these 3 people plus the opportunity owner or the campaign owner. And then the other thing I like about the approval process is it will actually lock the record that's being worked on until the approval happens, right? So you can't accidentally do something else. You can't accidentally trip something waiting on that approval process, because it'll lock the record for you as you do that.
That sounds like a great tool. And one of my favorites, though, is macros. And macros are just basically a set of actions that are executed on a group of records in one module. So you can't do this on, multiple modules, but well, let me give you an example. So let's say you go to a trade show and you've got a list of contacts to import, or let's call them leads. You want to send them an email after, you get back to the office. You want to say that it was great to meet them, and then schedule a follow-up by an appropriate salesperson. So that can all be automated with macros. One thing to know is that you do have to have certain permissions on the user profiles to make this happen. They need permission to send mass emails, permission for mass updates, and the ability to create activities. And then each macro can send one email, do 3 tasks, or update 3 fields. So very useful for that type of scenario.
So these, what we've just talked about, are some really nice, easy automations that we can actually utilize. The whole point is when you're maybe at the starting point and you're thinking, actually, I want to do my processes, I want to map my processes, I want to, actually do the whole process. This is where I'm going to talk about Orchestly. Orchestly is fantastic. It's a business workflow management tool. And what it allows you to do is, in one screen, it allows you to automate all your processes. You can define the stages, you can do process owners and track requests. And it's actually broken down into a couple of steps, and they make it really simple. And I know Danielle and Wendy are going to talk about a couple of these bits in a moment, but you can create a form, and then what you do is you design a blueprint, and then you set your permissions and you review the orchestration, and it allows you to bring in different modules, different products, either within the Zoho platform or outside. It's a very good tool when you're actually trying to design what you want from your automation. Does that make sense, guys?
It made perfect sense. And thank you for explaining that. Orchestly is one of the things that clients will often stumble across, not quite sure what to do with it. So we help them translate that into their business process. One of the things that works along with Orchestly that we found, sometimes you may need Orchestly, but other times it's simple as putting in a blueprint, right? So setting up blueprints and workflows in the CRM can be a little bit daunting. I always try to say, map it out with a cocktail napkin first, right? So if you can draw it out with a cocktail napkin, we can translate that into a blueprint inside the CRM. So what people often ask, what is the difference between a blueprint and a workflow? And a blueprint is specifically designed to help enforce a compliance process, right? So we'll have either, let's say, a lead nurturing blueprint or a sales blueprint, right? The sales stages and such, the sales process. But a lead nurturing blueprint, for example, you can set up step 1, step 2. When you put a new rep down in front of the CRM, it helps supplement the learning curve there, because if you've implemented the blueprint process for your lead nurturing, it shows them the exact steps that they're supposed to do next, right? So step 1 is to gather the information, right? And it'll pop up a screen. One of the things we do for lead nurturing is, gather the information. It'll pop up a screen that has the phone number and the email address, and whether or not it has something in there, right? So if it's blank, they're prompted to actually enter the information. And if it has something in it, they're actually able to, is it a correct email address? Does it look like a good phone number? That kind of thing. And then you go to step 2. So step 2 is I either left a voicemail message or I was able to get in contact with them, right? So it steps them exactly through the process. It can prompt them for boxes. For example, insert a note here, or check the telephone number, or insert, what happened at the end of the call, what is the next move? And they're only able to click on the very next transition. They're not able to skip steps. So it keeps everybody performing the exact process that you put into place. It cuts down on the knowledge transfer, cuts down on new employee training, and is a very easy way to, keep track of your database and keep track of your process flow.
Oh, that's excellent. I know we have a lot of clients that use blueprints, but somewhat of a newcomer to the Zoho ecosystem is Command Center, which actually adds quite a bit of customer journey that goes from one module, the CRM module, to maybe books, maybe desk. It goes across the different modules. And another differentiator is that the records can enter the Command Center from anywhere at any time. It's not just when they're being created or when they're being edited, because the processes are being monitored, or the records are being monitored in the background. So it can be very complex. I think it's a little bit more than a napkin, but you definitely want to have, kind of a big idea of where you're going before you even really start down the path of Command Center. But it's really very powerful. You can have multiple processes. You can have instant, scheduled, and recurring actions. So it's not just an instant thing. You can, wait a certain period of time, but really, it's really to plan the entire, like I said, customer journey. You can plan a supply chain process. It's really, really powerful. I'm not sure that we could talk for an entire 20 minutes probably about what all you can do with it. And I think I have some links that we can put in the show notes where you can find more about different scenarios that you could use Command Center for. It's not for the faint of heart, I think.
It's definitely not for the faint of the heart. So one of the things that we help our clients with, one of the value adds is, client will look at this and it'll be daunting, right? And they'll say, I'm a pretty smart cookie. I should be able to figure this out. But we often find a lot of CRM implementations fail because too much responsibility, too much decision-making is put on the end user or the client when they don't have enough information to actually make the decision that you're asking them to do. So, if you were to say, hey, come back to us when you have your lead nurturing process, or come back to us when you have, your sales stages and your sales process worked out, and come back to us, when you have all this other, flow worked out or whatever, they would get stalled. They would never go anywhere. So what we do is we help our clients through this. We take all the clients that we've worked on before, we take a look at your business process and what you're wanting to do with it, and we make recommendations. Hey, I have another client that does this, and then we use Command Center, and we have it connect to this, or we have it enter this blueprint, or send out this email reminder. So instead of sending our clients off to do all this themselves, we help them with that process, and we instruct you through it so that everybody can have the information to make the decisions that you need during these difficult conversations. So don't get too panicked over it. We help you through it. It's fine. Mita, I think you wanted to talk about one of the absolute favorites that everybody loves, workflows, right? You were going to say a few things on workflows?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I probably started a scare thing with starting with Orchestly and stuff like this. Now, what Orchestly, Blueprint, Command Center, they're fantastic automation tools. But sometimes businesses are going, if this happens, do that. And it could be multiple factors. And this is where workflow comes in. It can be from a very simple to sort of more complicated, which we help with custom functions. But that's basically what workflow does. What workflow does is it sort of says, right, let's take an example. When a sale has been won, a deal has been closed, what I would like is I want the potential owner of the contact to be changed to maybe the operations team. I would like that within a week after the opportunity has been won, that an email has been sent out, and I want to update certain fields. That can all be done easily by you in a workflow. Now, workflow is a lot more than just that simple thing. What workflow also allows, and again, I think Danielle is going to talk about custom functions, but custom functions allows for a very easy sort of development tool. So if you have something that's a little bit more complicated, we can create a custom function, and the workflow will allow you to call that custom function and make sure that all the automation is done very easily and very efficiently. One of the things I also sort of want you guys to be aware of is you can actually sort of say, bring in actions and schedules into it. And I think, Danielle, you were going to talk about actions because you love all of the actions and scheduling and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Workflows, low hanging fruit. It's easy to, install a workflow that says, when this one thing happens, change this field to do something else. And those are considered actions inside the CRM. So you're going to set up an action that is when, a lead meets this criteria, or I left a voicemail, or I closed this task, I want you to update this field and send this email notification, right? So those are instant actions that you can create, all within the CRM. It walks you through it step by step. Here, I want you to update this field. It'll ask you which field do you want, what's the criteria, what do you want it updated to, and then you can also, after it updates this field, I want you to assign this task and then send an email notification, right? So often clients will come to us and say, can we have notifications? I need to make sure I get these notifications. And I will always say, we can set up so many notifications, we can make you cry at 2 a.m. So don't worry about notifications. And then one of the ways we accomplish that is with the workflows. Another thing that I like to do inside the workflows is scheduled actions, right? So we can take a workflow and set it up that says, when this thing happens, I want you to wait for 24 hours and then do this other thing, right? So that is a scheduled action. So one of the things that we can do is we can say, we send an email, we send a follow-up email on, whatever it happens to be. It's following up on the delivery of the proposal, or notification of other things. And what the system can do is we can set up a workflow that says, when that email has been opened, because we've sent it from the CRM, we can tell when it's been opened. When that email has been opened, I want you to trigger 24 hours after that, send this other email, right? So it's a nice way to schedule actions that are going to happen. I have one client that has, send an email 24 hours later, 72 hours later, a week later, and they just keep going until, this action gets done, right? So did they log in? Did they do this other thing? So scheduled actions are really nice there. And that flows into the other thing that we can do with a workflow we do quite often is setting up custom functions. And as Mita said, with a custom function, you can do some very powerful things inside the CRM. Not for the faint of heart. You can do some Googling and you can get some help going through custom functions. But a lot of times it's easier to just have us write a script that does this thing for you. One of the most common ones would be when somebody puts in a zip code, I want to we'll write a custom function that says, I want to go out to, Google API, Geo API, find that zip code, and I want you to bring back down what county they're in, right? So a lot of our clients will work by county. So they may do territory assignment by county, right? So when you're in the CRM, you input a zip code, for example, and that will call a custom function to go out to the Google API, look for that zip code. It can pull down the county. It can pull down the time zone that they're in, various other items. But that is a very common one that we set up. Another custom function, very common custom function we set up for clients would be copying an address from one place to another. So they'll have, what's the billing address and what's the actual project address. So if I'm putting in the, how you're going through a web page and it says, my billing address and my shipping address are the same, and you can tick that box. We do that as well. So during the workflow, it says, if this box is ticked, right, I want you to kick off this custom function that copies, this billable address to this, project address over here. So those are just a little teeny tiny, two little examples and samples of how we use actions and schedules and custom functions to make your life a whole lot easier.
That in a way kind of leads into the next thing. And I think this is the last thing where, because our listeners are probably going to have their minds blown by all of this stuff. I mean, I think basically, if you want to automate something, it can be done. And
those that didn't leave after we talked about Orchestry, if you're
still awake, command center, for sure. So just one other thing, and I think Nita actually touched on a little bit, but sometimes you have the need to connect your Zoho with applications that are outside of Zoho, so not in the Zoho ecosystem, although I believe you could do that also. Yeah. But Zoho Flow is what I'm referring to. And this is basically the connector for myriad apps and services that are used for business and can be other cloud applications. Again, not inside the Zoho ecosystem. And if you've ever heard of Zapier or Zapier, it's Zoho's answer to that, and it's included with your Zoho One subscription. So that's a plus, because if you want to do anything cool with Zapier, you got to pay for it extra. So one of the things that we do that's really changed my life forever is to have our Acuity appointment scheduler cloud service linked to our Zoho calendar. So the way that we use it, just real quickly, is we have this online scheduler. People go to our website, they pick a date and time when we're available. It's awesome for many reasons. But then what happens behind the scenes is we have a flow set up that checks Zoho to see if the person who scheduled with us is a lead in our database already. And if it is, it attaches a new meeting to that lead. And if it's not, it looks in our database for a contact. And if there is a contact, it'll attach the meeting. But if there's not a contact or a lead, then it creates a lead and attaches the meeting. So you can imagine how much time this saves, not only on, are you available this time on this date, going back and forth with email, but also then just throwing that right on your calendar. And it also sends us a message that says, hey, you've got something new on your calendar. So another type of example where you could use this maybe is when a project is completed, you could create a very customized invoice in Zoho Books for your client.
Yeah, that was one of the things, if you don't mind, we just did one really cool a couple of days ago for a client. And that was when they finished a project, they needed some very custom stuff sent over to Zoho Books, right? So instead of taking the billing address from the account and the shipping address from the account, they actually needed the billing address from the account, just like normal, but the shipping address or project address actually came from the sales opportunity or the deal inside the CRM. That was copied over to the project when the project was complete. Instead of copying, shipping address from the account, which is what the Zoho Books integration does, internally, we were able to have it input the project address from the opportunity as the shipping address for that. So instead of having, I've got to change the shipping address in the account every time I want to do it or change it manually, it just grabs it from the opportunity and puts it onto the very custom invoice that they needed to send out. So many things we can do with Flow. And it is one of my absolute favorites because, like you said, I used to be addicted to Zapier. I've been a Zapier user for, 10, 12 years. And when I discovered that we had Flow, I'm like, ooh, we get to use this for all our cool stuff now. So yeah. Well, ladies, I very much appreciate this. And I'm hoping our audience, like I said, if they are still here after the Orchestly discussion, I hope this has helped an awful lot. But one of our greatest value adds to clients, like I said, is this automation process. We want to make sure that you can make more money with less resources.
Yeah, just imagine how much time you can save implementing even just a few of these tips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, for your time, and I will see you next week. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too.
Bye. Bye.